and mission statement. All right, now I'm going to get going. So, Grassroots vision, a federal wildfire management system cultivated in partnership with those who serve in it, going back to nothing about us without us. The Grassroots mission, we advocate for federal wildland firefighters with the focus on proper classification, compensation, comprehensive health and well-being, and the optimization of the wildland fire management system. We do this by providing the public, media, elected officials, and agency leaders access to the authentic lived experience and expertise of the federal wildland fire personnel. My intent, and I'm the current president, because I didn't say that, my name's Luke Mayfield. My intent, I've been here since the inception. Grassroots is a platform that is led by those that are still putting their boots on the ground. Grassroots is a platform to turn what was once a subject that mattered in death and August into a year-round topic and advocacy community. Our intent is to take the conversations that have occurred over decades under trees, in vehicles and ready rooms into a cohesive effort for change. We've spent a long time being quiet professionals, and we have to tell the stories and advocate together to ensure that advocacy turns into action. And I think we've been doing a pretty fantastic job with a multitude of other organizations. With that, I just want to thank everybody for being here and giving a shit, and I will hand it to Reva Duncan, Grassroots Vice President. Thank you.
Thanks, Luke. Hey, everybody. Reva Duncan here, Vice President. Just real quick update on our nonprofit status. So for those of you who don't know, we are a registered nonprofit. We started out as a 501c4, which was an advocacy nonprofit, which that's what we were doing. That made a lot of sense. But as we kind of got into things and got more experience and knowledge, we realized that there were some shortcomings with that. And so we wanted to also pursue our 501c3. It's, you know, and a lot of nonprofits have both, because a lot of it is funding differences and how we are able to spend our money. So we have separate accounts now. There are restrictions on, you know, how we spend those monies for what we're doing. And so this just keeps it, again, you know, clean for the work that we're doing, whether we're talking to legislators or we're meeting with hotshot superintendents. So that's brand new that we got our 501c3. It can't be the same name. So 501c3 is Friends of Grassroots, but we're just still going to talk about ourselves as Grassroots Wildland Firefighters. If you've signed up for the monthly donations, that has gone to the 501c4. That's okay. But the 501c3 allows people to get a tax write-off, right, for their donations. So if you're donating to the C4 and you'd rather get that tax break on your taxes, then cancel it and start over. Our new donate button on the website goes to our 501c3. But this just gives us a lot more flexibility with what we're doing and how we're going to spend our money. And we can now court some large donors who really want that tax break. And so we're gonna try to do that. And we have other members who will talk about the donate stuff and the fundraising. So that's it for me. Really stoked to be here. Excited. It's going to be a great evening. So have your questions ready for later. Thanks. And now on to Bobby Scopa, our secretary.
Hey, everyone. And thanks for tuning in here. I've got just a couple things I want to mention. If you have kind of lost faith a little bit, if you kind of feel like, where are we going now? What's going on? Because we felt like we were going gangbusters last summer, and then things kind of got slowed down, and it's all dependent, you know, for us, it's all dependent on what's going on in DC and how we can engage. So I just want to mention that there's a lot of work going on. And there's a lot of people, not just in our organization, but outside the organization, outside of Grassroots, but at the agency level, and politically, that are also struggling about where do we go from here. Now there's progress, and you're going to hear about that. We're kind of, the ball's rolling again. But if you have felt a little bit discouraged, stick with it. Stick with it. We think there's progress to be made. Riva mentioned about some of the fundraising. I just want to mention that there are organizations, for-profit organizations, that are interested in helping support our effort because they're in the business. And so we're working with those organizations to possibly get some funding to help the effort. With that, and I gotta apologize, I have to leave early today, but I want to tell you, the folks who are doing the work on these committees that you're going to hear from, they're doing outstanding work, and I am impressed as heck with them. And with that, let me turn it over to Jonathan Golden, who's going to give us a legislative update.
Hey, thanks, Bobby. Appreciate that. It's good to see everybody here. As it is, I'm actually right outside the Capitol right now, and the State of the Union is going on. And so the president is addressing Congress right now. But, as a lot of you saw, the big news this week was that the House passed a minibus of 6 bills, which included the Interior and Environment Related Agencies Appropriations Bill. And within that bill was about $876 million for wildfire preparedness and suppression, for Forest Service and Interior.
Can you go turn off the truck for a minute?
Yeah. I'm sorry. So yeah, there is, needless to say, the FY24 dollars have been appropriated by the House Interior, actually the whole House that was voted on. And now tomorrow the Senate is expected to take that up right ahead of the deadline, and it will go to the president's desk. And with that, that should alleviate some pressure or tension regarding firefighter salaries for the year. So, let's talk about, I guess, other bills that are out there, and actually one bill in specific, and that's the Wildland Firefighter Paycheck Protection Act. I firmly believe that, Tim's Act is really the gold standard and what everything needs to look like for wildland firefighters. But right now it's the WFPPA that really has, I'm sorry, somebody said they can't hear me. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, thank you. So the WFPPA is the bill that probably stands the larger chance of getting passed to create a permanent pay solution. The way this appropriations worked, it was kind of a 1-year shot where appropriators went ahead and overwrote authorizers within the House to say, like, we're going to fund firefighters for this year, and don't object to it. And it sounds like, from what I'm hearing from people in the House, is that the Speaker of the House has reached out to look for ways to pay for the Wildland Firefighter Paycheck Protection Act. It's going to be another considerable expense, and as fiscally minded as this House majority is, they're always looking for ways to pay for bills that are coming up that are going to incur larger costs. And so I guess I'm encouraged by that news. If they can find a way to pay for this bill in order to pay wildland firefighters what they are duly deserved of, this is great news, and sets us on the path for a permanent pay fix. As you know, in the Senate, this bill passed out of the HSGAC, the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee, and it is essentially awaiting to be taken up on the Senate floor. I don't know when or if that will happen, but my guess is that the Energy and Natural Resources Committee that oversees or has oversight over a lot of what the land management agencies have are waiting to find a larger, much passed bill that they can sneak in the WFPPA bill with and hope for a pass there. So, Bobby's right. There's a lot to be optimistic about. Obviously, big fire seasons tend to have a way to make bigger action happen in Washington, D.C. Not that we're ever hoping or waiting for those kind of things, but just something to be aware of. And of course, everybody's efforts in letting their representatives or their senators know what's at stake here is super critical. So please keep up your, personal advocacy and supporting groups like Grassroots, Wildland, Firefighters, who are, doing a lot with a lot of other organizations out there to just make everything known to our stakeholders in Congress. Thank you guys so much. And that wraps up my update.
Thanks, John. I think next up, so we've had a lot of questions on the position description classification portion of the conversation, and Grassroots doesn't take up. We don't have a seat at that table. The people doing the heavy lifting are Wildland Firefighters as a part of the National Federation of Federal Employees. And Abel Martinez has been gracious enough to jump on and spend 10 minutes to provide an update on what's going on with classification and position descriptions. If I misspoke at all, Abel, please call me out. And outside of that, the floor is yours.
You guys got me? I don't know if I'm having issues here with the phone, seeing if
yeah, we've got you loud.
Okay. So Abel Martinez, I am the chairman for the National Fire Committee on behalf of NIFI, along with Josh Northrup at Region 6. For me, I'm a captain here on the Angeles, Region 5. So kind of working with the PDs, giving you an update of where we're at and kind of where we came from with it. Back in late July, we got notification that they're ready to be reviewed. Myself and two others got that on a Friday with an expectation to turn it in by next Wednesday. So not a lot of time to review a whole lot of PDs. So came to the realization that we really needed to change direction and expand reviewing the PDs for one, to have them reviewed by subject matter experts of their expertise. So hotshots looking at hotshots, Helitech looking at Helitech, jumpers looking at jumpers, because between myself and two others, we have experience in those fields, but it's been many moons since we filled those boots. So that was a big priority for us to make sure that they're going to be reviewed and validated by the experts in those fields. So that was one of the concerns. And then quickly looking into it, that there was just a lot of language of what we wanted to see. So some of the input that the groups have provided in other efforts a few months before wasn't showing up. So kind of went back and forth with management. NIFI kind of standing their ground and saying, hey, our priority was that the PDs are going to be accurate to duties and grade. There were some concerns with the grade initially. And another ask that we have, and that's something that we're currently still working on right now. Not so much what's written in the duties, but looking at the qualifications that are required of the position. So right now they're just listed on there, but they're not factor scored, and they're not being graded to what that GS level would be if it was independently looked at and evaluated. So that's currently what we're looking at. We're working with management on how that should read. So the classifiers back at HR have something to go off of that they know and understand, and to try to get those qualifications factor scored like you would any other position and get them graded out. So the intent of that is going back and looking at, okay, if you're an IC4, that's required of your position, and that rates out as, let's say, independent evaluation, we're looking at somewhere between a GS10 or a GS11. So now that's going to be considered in your PD versus right now it's just written in there. You have to meet the requirement, but it's not taken into account as far as scoring. Other minor things is obviously we want to make sure that the duties that are in there are accurate, and some language isn't going to affect you in a negative way later, where maybe that language could be misconstrued and be taken advantage of depending on who's reading it and how they're interpreting it. But making sure also that the specialized experience and training and qualifications that are required for someone like, let's say, the engines in Region 5, there was no mention of SCBAs, even though that's, it's a mainstay here with us within Region 5. And then just some clarification on medical standards as to what standard we're going to be held to. So that's a quick down and dirty of where we're at. We're still working with management. It's a slow process. Not a lot of information has come out because there hasn't been a lot of solid information that we could get out there. We don't want to just get information out there for the sake of getting information out there. But we're starting to make some progress. It's slow. It's not where we want to be. It's not as fast as we want it to get out there, but we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence right now, because the other option would have to go is everybody submitting a desk audit, and that's a really lengthy process with not a lot of probable success. So while we have, and HR doesn't want that either. They don't want 400 desk audits on their hands either. So it's a combined effort with us and WLFAM to make sure that this is done correctly. So that's where we're at right now.
Thanks, Abel. And do you have any insight potentially on the bargaining unit employee versus non-bargaining unit employee and the process involved?
Yeah, so sorry, I forgot to mention that we're only evaluating the bargaining unit PDs. The non-bargaining unit PDs have already been moved further along for to be evaluated if they're going to be, primary, secondary, fire coverage, and I think something else I can't remember offhand. But yeah, we can't touch non-BUE ones. So you're probably going to see those come out first because they are non-BUE and we don't have any right to, within those PDs. So when you start seeing like something like the opt-in, opt-out process, we've also been involved with how that's going to look like. And do you want me to kind of touch on that a little bit?
I don't think it would hurt, and you've got the time.
Yeah. So yeah, with the opt-in, opt-out process, what it's roughly going to look like is 45 open periods. Not to say that if you don't do it within those 45 periods, like you're not going to be able to do it. It would just have to be an independent. You had to have to open a case like you would for any other HR related issue independently outside of those periods. You don't have to do it. It's totally your choice. Any of the new positions that do come out are only going to be flown as 4, 5, 6 anyways. So eventually, like if you're going to be up to promotion, like that's the only thing that's going to be available for you to, I guess, promote. But again, it's optional. I think here shortly, they're going to put out some FAQs as far as the classification and what you're going to get into with that. Again, that anticipated 45 open periods. I think they're going to start obviously with the non-BUEs because they're already pushing those forward. And I can't remember offhand if there was anything else, but I think that we're good with that for now.
Thanks, Abel. And then from what I understand, just a little bit of differentiation between Forest Service and DOI and why there's already 0456 DOI positions being flown was and if I screw this up, anyone can fill it in, but there was fewer PDs to go throughout this process in personnel management and classification. And the big driver as well was the removal of positive education requirements that existed in old DOI job descriptions that no longer apply. So if they would have been kept, people wouldn't have been able to apply for jobs that they now qualify for based off of the experience, expertise, and all other aspects of firefighting jobs from superintendents on down. Riva, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say DOI started it. So people have already gotten their request to opt in or opt out, and they're flying jobs at the 456. They did upgrade a couple of positions that we know of. And then also like what Abel was talking about. So once the PDs are approved, they have to go to the Department of Agriculture HR. And so USDA HR then makes the determination on firefighter retirement for them. So that's kind of the last step. So the non-bargaining unit PDs have already gone to USDA, but they've been up there a really long time. So not sure what the holdup is, but they're up there waiting on that. And then once the bargaining unit ones are completed, the review's completed, then they'll go to the department for that.
Thanks, Riva. Any go backs, Abel or anyone else on position description classifications? We'll have 45 minutes of Q&A at the end. So if you have questions, please write them in the chat or hold on to them.
No go backs. We'll just, I guess, wait for the Q&A portion if there is any questions regarding that.
Okay. Thanks, Abel. Next on the agenda is Smoke Jumper Bro. He's going to do a quick rundown on changes in the website with the creation of the Friends of Grassroots and Grassroots Wildland Firefighters. So Smoke Jumper Bro, the floor is yours.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen really quick here. There we go. So here's the main website. Right here is the Donate Now button. And the big change we've done is this website is for the C4 organization. So if you want to make a tax deductible, non-political donation, click on the Donate Now button. And you can see up here, it's going to send you to Friends of Grassroots Wildland Firefighters. That's a different website. And maybe it won't even load. I don't know. It normally does work, but it'll send you to a form that is pretty easy to go through, and then you can just make a donation. There's not really much else on that website. If you want to make a donation that would go towards political activity, you can just scroll down to the bottom of the website here, and you can donate to the C4, and that's down here, and that's the standard form to donate. That's pretty much it for me, unless anybody wants me to go over the any other part of the website. The one thing I would say is we are working on a new website to just replace all this stuff, because it's just kind of gotten out of control with all the information we have. If anybody would like to help with that, feel free to email me. It's smokejumperbro@gmail.com if anybody wants to get involved with a new website development. Thanks.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it. Let's see. Next on the agenda, we have Mr. Dutchick as the Pillar 2 Chair for Comprehensive Health and Well-Being. And then we also have a special guest that'll be talking, George Broyles, following Dutch. So with that, I'll let you have the floor, Dutch.
Thanks, Luke, and thanks everyone for joining tonight. So again, my name's Pete Dutchick. I also go by Dutch. So a lot has happened over the last 4 years when it comes to the topics of comprehensive health and well-being. A lot of us were drawn to this organization because we had lost friends to suicide, we'd lost friends to cancer, prematurely to cardiovascular diseases. And at the time, there really wasn't a lot being done. So that's kind of the why as to how our subcommittee, the Comprehensive Health and Wellbeing Subcommittee, started up. So with that in mind, as far as some updates, starting with mental health. So as of last April, there was a summit that got brought together through the bipartisan infrastructure law. There was funding and programs and positions created to try to build up a behavioral and comprehensive health and well-being program. So this is no small task. We have been working where we can to support the national offices. We were able to attend the summit. And so, you know, as of now, where that program stands, I can tell you there's a lot of really good people working on that. Really, they're looking to build out a first step as the Joint Behavioral Health Program. Right now, it sounds like really taking a phased approach with, you know, focus on clinical services and evidence-based trauma care. And that really is a work in progress. So one thing I do really want to reiterate is that, you know, the current system, whether it's EAP, whether it's the program that's being built through the joint interagency programs, or whether it's Department of Labor, I know we all have our own opinions about those things, but just want to take the time to encourage people to try those things. Unless we try them and know where they're working and where they're not, they're really hard to fix. And that's going to be true of Department of Labor, whether you're filing claims for something that happened. I can't stress enough, go for it. There's a special claims unit within DOL right now. So whether it's cancer, cardiovascular care, mental health, go for it. If it doesn't work or something's not working, obviously push it up the chain, let us know about it, so we know what's happening on the ground. That's how we're going to be successful. So on the cancer front, last year within the National Defense Authorization Act, and prior to that through the administrative process through Department of Labor, there was a wide range of cancer coverages in the presumptive sense, along with a few cardiovascular coverages as well, which is historic by any standard. So there's a lot of cancers that we're covered for. I encourage you to go to our website, see what's covered, what's not, do your research ahead of time. So if something bad does happen to you or one of your personnel, that you know what to do. In line with that, we are working with our team to reach out to subject matter experts to continue to build up some of the tools and information sharing that we do have on our website. It is a lengthy process, but there is overall, in general, with mental health in America, there is a shortage of providers. So again, encouraging people to do what they need to, whether that's utilizing telehealth, which is feasible now, where it wasn't many years ago, or going in and seeing providers. So we're going to continue to update our website and work as a team on that. And then another piece that I want to focus on with cancer is one thing that was not in the NDAA as covered cancers were specifically female cancers and female reproductive cancers. There is a window where we can petition to have some of those covered, but we are doing what research we can. We're working with some state and local departments that do have that coverage. They've got the coverage in Australia. So we're seeing what's out there and hoping to work with Department of Labor, legislators, whoever we can, to make sure that our sisters are covered should anything unfortunate happen on the cancer front. Only other thing to mention is the Firefighter Cancer Registry. So it's new, gosh, I want to say as of earlier in 2023, maybe May or June. They are working to try to improve that system. If you do go into it, admittedly, it is built for both structure and wildland firefighters. A lot of the questions are more structure centric, which is okay. And it can be a little clunky, but with that said, get in there, put your information in, and get involved. It can't hurt to just get in there and get involved and tell your friends, tell your coworkers about it. The goal of that is to start tracking who's in the system, and then they'll utilize state databases to link that to if any of the individuals in that system have cancer. So it's a pretty big process. A lot of people spent a lot of time building that, but that's something we should all get into as first responders, wildland firefighters. The last thing I'll say is we're very grateful to all of our SMEs that we've worked with, whether they're within local departments, whether it's military, or whether they're just SMEs in that category. George Broyles being one of them. And I also do want to take this opportunity to thank the committee that's done a lot of work, the committee that we've built as a group for comprehensive health and well-being, but also other groups such as Fire It Up, Hotshot Association, Veterans in Fire. These are all folks that we're working with. And of course, Wildfire Industry Collective. So there's a lot of good work in coalition. NIFI is doing a ton of work on the medical stuff. So it's a lot of work. One group can't do it alone, and it takes everybody. So thanks to all those groups that are involved in different facets of this. So with that, that's all I have. I'll pass it back over to you or to George.
You want to introduce George Dutch?
Sure. So really fortunate to have George Broyles here with us today. He has been instrumental even before Grassroots came together and doing just a ton of research on firefighter and employee health and well-being. Even in retirement, he continues to fight the good fight on all of our behalf. I have the utmost respect for George Broyles, and we're lucky to have him here today with us. So thanks for being here, George.
Thank you, Dutch, and thank the board. I really, really appreciate it. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, all right, great. So yeah, I appreciate that. And the board give me some time on your agenda. And also want to congratulate you all and thank you for all the great work you guys do and have been doing. So I'm going to talk about three topics briefly. I've got 10 minutes here, but I'll have plenty of time after this, enough for your initial Q&A. But beyond that, I'm more than willing to talk to folks and help things out. But the three things I want to mention before I get there, I want to make it clear I have a really strong bias about this stuff, okay? For a couple of reasons. First of all, I know quite a bit about it, and I know the hazards that it presents, both the safety and the health hazards to every man and woman that's out on the fire line. So I get real passionate about it, and my bias is to action. And what I've noticed over my career and more recently the past 10, 12, 15 years, particularly when I've been looking at some of these issues, is I've noticed a pattern of negligence on the side of our agencies. And I'm with the Forest Service, was with the Forest Service for 37 years. And some of this stuff is not new. They've known about it for years and years. And more recently, again, the last 10 or 15 years, it's been more obvious to them. And their lack of action is well, I find it incomprehensible. But anyways, let me get on to what I want to talk about here, I guess. Those three issues are cancer, noise exposure, and cancer from noise, from smoke exposure, and the other respiratory diseases and so forth that's associated with that. And then just real briefly on PFAS. So let's talk first about noise exposure. If you're not familiar with it, you really need to be, okay? It presents very, very serious safety hazards while you're out on the line, okay? If you're exposed to that type of noise, loud noises, you think you might be communicating effectively. You can hear people perhaps, but your brain cannot always comprehend what those words are saying, what those people are trying to tell you, all right? It also impacts your ability to concentrate. It gives you headaches and fatigue, loss of mental acuity, all those things that you need to act decisively and think clearly, right? So it's a real problem from that perspective. Long-term, noise-induced hearing loss, okay? When I'm not wearing these earbuds to talk, I'm wearing hearing aids, okay? And you don't want to go down there. But the data that we have shows that if you're running a chainsaw, a Sawyer or Swamper, within the first 5 or 10 minutes, you're exceeding an OSHA 8-hour exposure. All right.
Hi, I'm in a meeting.
Right. So that's pretty significant, right? For the folks that are out there, masticators, engines, all those things that make noise. And you might get it once and think, well, it's just a one-time thing, but that's a cumulative hearing loss that develops among the other issues that go with that. So what can be done about that? All right. OSHA has CFRs like every other federal agency, and it's very clear what they expect our agencies to do when folks are overexposed. All right. If you're a firefighter, I can almost guarantee you, regardless of what position you're taking or operating in, you're overexposed to some degree. And OSHA, like, and the CFR has 5 basic things that you have to do. And the first one is audiometric testing, right? Hearing tests. You should have had one when you entered your job. All right, and it doesn't matter, 37 years ago when I started, I should have had one, and I never did in 37 years. The other part of that is every year you should be getting an annual audiogram. Every single year, your employer should be providing that for you. And there's very specific types of audiograms that you need to get. All right, obviously you need hearing protection devices. That's another piece of it. But you should be given a good options on what you want so that you get what you need. And I can tell you those little yellow pieces of shit that you get are not what you need to be using, okay? Just so you know, if anybody has any questions about that or doubts. The other issue is training. You should be getting yearly training on the hazards of noise exposure, what you need to be doing to prevent it. The thing that really killed me about noise exposure is the damage that it causes, which is permanent hearing loss and tinnitus and depression, sometimes all these other issues, is it's 100% preventable. All right, given the right education, the right training, and the right tools, it's 100% preventable. And hearing loss doesn't only affect you, but it affects everybody around you. The other issue is record keeping. You have to keep records of this until you retire, and then I think another 5 or 10 years after that. Just real briefly, I submitted a FOIA to the Forest Service a year or two ago to find out if they're doing that. And I only got a response from R6, and they said they don't have the records or it's too hard to find them or whatever. So they have to do it, but they're not doing it. All right. So that's one issue, is that noise. And there's something that can be done about it. And we can talk about that if folks are interested. What I've suggested to Luke and Dutch is folks can submit an OSHA complaint, and it's really easy to do. And I'll be more than willing to help folks do it. You only need 2 people, one that submits it and a coworker that says, yeah, I agree with what they're saying. If that's something you're interested in doing, please let me know, and I'll be glad to help you with it, because OSHA is an enforcing agency. If they knock on the door of your district office or your regional office and say, we've got and those complaints are anonymous, just so you know, you don't have to put your name on them unless you really want to. But simple process, but it might get OSHA to move on this and then force the agency to do what they're supposed to do by law. I was looking at the Risk Management Committee meeting notes from January 11th of this year, and there was a note in there about noise exposure, and it said that basically they're going to look into it. And I have no idea what that meant or means. I reached out to somebody on that committee and they didn't know either. But there's no point in looking into it because we already have the data to support what they need to do. But to my mind, that's NWC just kicking a can down the road. We'll look into it instead of doing what they have to do. The other issue, obviously, then is smoke exposure, which it's really clear. It causes cancer, it causes respiratory disease, and other issues. In 2012, NWCD put out a memo. I don't know if anybody saw it, but that gave recommended occupation exposure limits for smoke exposure. And the Risk Management Committee put together a group of individuals, and I was on that group, to come up with those exposure limits. Okay, because the ones that OSHA has and other standards don't apply to wildland firefighting for a variety of reasons. Because one, occupation exposure limits are for one component, carbon monoxide or benzene, whatever it is, but it's not for a whole mixture that you're exposed to. And the other thing is they're set up for 8 hours exposures, not 12, 15, 16, like you all work. So they put this together and they sent out a memo in 2012 that this is what we should be doing, all right? We should be staying under these limits. To the best of my knowledge, no agency, and certainly NWCG, has ever done anything about that. Again, I think these folks need to be held to account, right? You all have representatives. If you're with the Forest Service, your risk management folks, your representatives at NWCG, they need to be taken to task, I would say, or at least say, are you going to do something and when are you going to do something? I did find out that they're going to do more monitoring, smoke exposure monitoring. Okay. We know what the hazard is. We know what the data tells us. And now they want the same kind of thing. Well, let's just kick the can down and do more monitoring instead of doing what they need to do. So there's a potential for folks to do. Reach out to your folks that you know, either on a risk management committee or your respective agencies or NWCG, and say, how come you're not abiding by the standards that you recommended in 2012? And just briefly, I'm not sure where I'm at with time here, Dutch, but I can say with quite a bit of certainty that there's PFAS in some portion or some piece of the PPE that you all wearing. Not everybody, but I know for a fact that there's a piece of PPE in the cache that has PFAS. And I was asked again by the Grassroots folks a year or two ago to look into that. And I submitted a FOIA to the Forest Service on that too. I have yet to hear back from them. But I can say with confidence that there is at least some type of PFAS. And if you're familiar with that, that's one of those forever chemicals. And I don't know exactly what constituent PFAS encompasses, literally thousands of different constituents, but there's some portion of that. So again, I talk about that at the beginning. There's this pattern of negligence. At least the Forest Service knows about the noise, knows about the smoke, knows about the PFAS. And to the best of my knowledge, to date, has done very, very little. And I won't make, a broad scope or broad statement that nobody's doing anything. There are individuals within these agencies I know that are trying to implement change and are trying to do something. But I think at the highest levels, to ignore the fact or ignore a FOIA that's asking a simple question, do you have PFAS in your PPE? Again, you folks that are still there, whether it's through OSHA or if you know folks in your department, your agencies that say, hey, this is what I heard, how can we do something about it? Okay. And that's really all I had. There's a whole lot I can go into. If there's folks that are interested in the OSHA complaint form or anything else like that, and we can take that offline anytime that you have time. I'm mostly retired, like Pete said. I retired about 2.5, 3 years ago, I guess. But spend a vast majority of my time working on these issues again, because they're so important to me, and anything we can do now, because it's too late for me, that ship already sailed, right? I already went through the cancer thing. I can guarantee you don't want to go through it. And you don't want your wife or your brother or sister or whoever it is to have to go through that with you. I can just absolutely guarantee that. So anyway, any other things I can do for you, I'm here to do it.
Thank you, George. Can't thank you enough, really. I think we're all grateful for the work you've done and continue to do, and we'll certainly be recruiting you for a George Broyles solo show for the Grassroots folks. With that, I'm going to move on to our comms lead. And again, and confirming, George, you'll be here for Q&A, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. You bet.
Great. So with that, if you have questions for George, please hold on to them, and we can also provide anything we need in terms of contacting George or trying to get clearinghouse questions, answers going in some way, shape, or form. But with that, I would like to hand it over to our comms lead. Grassroots really would not function without the leadership that we've had through the comms organization and that volunteer group of folks, from comms lead number 1 to now comms lead, the current comms lead. So with that, go for it.
Thank you, Luke. So the comms team does our social media, our newsletters, our website management. We research potential legislation and regulations, and then we connect reporters to both the board and firefighters on the ground to get the most accurate reporting available out there. It's a small team, really dedicated folks, fantastic human beings, but we all have full-time jobs and we're 100% volunteer. So this is the type of work that if you're thinking about helping out Grassroots Wildland firefighters and you have an hour a week to spare, we could really use the help, specifically with our social media content. It's really hard to keep up on Instagram and Twitter and all the different platforms that are out there. So if this is something that you have the bandwidth for and the interest in, reach out to us on Instagram, message us on Instagram, or you can email us at gwfsocial@gmail.com. That's Golf Whiskey Foxtrot Social@gmail.com. And the other thing for folks to keep their eyes peeled for is we have a facilities, equipment, and vehicle survey. We've already put one out a couple years ago. We're going to put another one out to get more current information. So be on the lookout for that survey and participate if you are available to do that. And that's all we got from the comms team. End of report.
Thanks, comms lead. Next, we will move on to the culture committee lead, for lack of a better term right now. And I'm not sure the name, so I'll let you do that.
Ben. I'm not sure about my internet bandwidth, so holler if I'm coming in scratchy and broken. But my name is Ben McLean, and I'm the culture committee lead for the Grassroots Wildland Firefighters Culture Committee. Yeah, moment to shout out to everything everybody's doing on behalf of all of us, but especially George and your work. It is not going unnoticed because despite what Congresses or agencies may or may not do, our culture is ours to own. And how we decide to wear yellows when we clean them, what kind of ear pro we use, and how cool we make it, that's culture. We get to decide what we do with that. And culture is something we always get the option to influence. And so that, with that purpose, for influencing the better lived experience of everybody who says yes to this sacrifice that the job is inherently rife with. And in the interest of believing in duty, respect, and integrity, it's my duty to learn everything I can about what other folks are doing to make the lived experience of firefighters a little bit better through things like how they're showing up to work and what they're talking about. And so that's what the culture committee has been. We meet monthly, and so far, what's come out of it is a resources tab on our website. And I will share a link to that in the chat. Within that is some stuff you've probably seen in other places. It's also stuff, specifically the sexual assault response guide. Just like we have guides and checklists for how we respond to other high consequence and low frequency events like a line of duty death. This is the type of event that requires a very intentional and planned response. And so people within our community let out and created a tool for us to use. That's located on the resources tab. What we've got coming in the future, we've partnered with Women in Wildland Fire to give them access to everything we've got, including our Zoom account, which is basically all we got. But we're happy to help and be in partnership with them for their leadership panel coming up in April. That's going to be April 2nd. So look out for their advertisements for that. And that's going to be exploring diverse career paths in the Wildland Fire Service. It's not all about operations. So I think a lot of us really enjoy the operations side of things. And what's coming in the future is more of a panel series that we're looking into with all aspects of the culture to better understand and influence now the things that we can act on, whether or not we get funding from Congress, whether or not agencies respond to FOIA requests, things like Nomex washing habits, to name one. Things like physical fitness and nutrition, mental health and well-being, untapped high potential recruitment pools where people are seeing success getting quality people with attributes necessary to crush it in this job. Because we know that the agencies aren't doing a lot of good to recruit for us. So we got to go and do that on our own. So anyway, that's just a brief on what we've got going on. We'll be around for Q&A if folks have more curiosity. And if you're interested in contributing, please reach out to us by email. And we're so grateful to our comms team. But this is all volunteer for all of us. So just a little grace and getting back to you and getting the email invite to you would be greatly appreciated. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it and all the work that yourself and the culture committee are able to perform. With that, last person on the docket is Fundraising Bro. So he'll speak and then we'll be moving right into the Q&A. So Fundraising Bro, floor is yours.
Okay, thanks. I'll make this quick so that we can get to the good part, the Q&A. My name is Fundraiser Bro. I'm a wildland firefighter out of Region 2. For the past couple of years, I've been volunteering on the communications team, but recently I've switched over to help out with Grassroots budget. What I wanted to do tonight is a first. for these meetings, and I want to make a specific and dedicated fundraising ask. That's an uncomfortable thing for me to do, especially as someone that's been a GS5 for 90% of my career. But I'm doing it, and we're going to build fundraising asks in more frequently because I think it's critical, that our organization needs you to go to our website and to become a donor. If you donate to the 501c3, that's completely tax deductible. I know that there's issues right now with the donate button, but it's going to be fixed soon. And don't worry, you're going to be getting an email in the next couple of days with a link following up and asking you to donate. So please look for that email. Whether it's a one-time donation or a small monthly donation, we won't be relying on firefighter donations forever. I promise that. But for the time period right now, we need to bridge the gap. We're trying to go to Washington, D.C. We're trying to pay our vendors like Zoom and our email blast service. We're trying to keep the lights on to be able to do the things that you see online, on social media, and that you're hearing about in this meeting. It takes money. And if you don't give, that's not the end of the world. Not everyone can. But we're still going to be here doing advocacy, but it might be a smaller capacity. It might be with less influence, but we're going to continue doing it. So to sum up, if you want to help, if you think this is valuable, please just consider it. You could turn it on during fire season when you're making money. You could turn it off after fire season. We get it. Money's tight. That's the whole reason we exist, is to advocate for the workforce that isn't being compensated enough. And you should know that my position within Grassroots is now in fundraising, and we're working to find corporate sponsors and grants, and we're doing the research that we need to do to build the lists that we need to be able to start moving away from asking for donations from firefighters and relying more on the different broader sources that are out there. So if you are interested in doing some of that research, you could contact me through the website. We are going to be trying to do more research in the next couple months, building out our fundraising list. And I just saw in the chat the donate button works now, so you can go to that on the website and make a donation. That's all I got. Thanks for everybody's time tonight. Pass it back.
Thank you very much, Fundraiser Bro. And I just want to close. We're never going to hold information hostage or as a part of membership. We're open source. We're an open book. If you want the information, that's what the site's for. We want a community, we want cohesion, and we want tools that provide for community advocacy and individual or self-advocacy. So by no means is cash what gets you access. We believe that the time, years spent going up and down hillside suppressing fires in the wildland urban interface or in the middle of a wilderness area is the cost of getting this information and the ability to advocate as a community. So with that, we'll move into the question and answer period, and I will stop talking unless I need to. Thank you very much.
I guess time for questions, and you can either raise your hand in the on your screen or pop something in the chat, whatever you want to do.
And Riva or Luke, were we, just to make clear, were we keeping the recording going, or were we stopping it?
We're keeping it going because we'll post this on our YouTube site so people who missed the meeting can look at the question.
Sounds good. Just wanted to clarify. Thanks.
We got a question about wage grade, and maybe that's a better question for the union guys. My understanding was that, if you're in wage grade, it's extremely complicated and complex, and it's wage grade in one state makes different than wage grade in another state because of DOD facilities and everything. So for what I know right now, wage grade is not included in the new series, but I don't know if the union has any better or different info.
Hey, Riva, Andy.
Go ahead, Andy, thanks.
Yeah, so I'll try to get this for you real quick. I think they should be in the new series, but as far as the pay, it is going to be up to the Secretaries of Agriculture and Interior to try to match their pay. I can't even speak right now. Match the pay as close as they can with the GS level. So they would get the pay bump. I'm hoping they're already thinking about that and would happen immediately. But that's what I know. It will happen, but it's up to both secretaries.
Okay. So the wage grade folks, the fire wage grade folks should be all getting the supplement. We do know that. But the classification thing is complex. So stay tuned.
And Comms just added a comment that wage grade is included in the WFPPA verbiage if it can get passed.
It's included to get, the permanent pay raise. Again, it's a series that is dicey, right?
Yep. George, your hand is up.
Yeah, thanks. Just a quick go back. Been working with Arizona State and University of Miami on a multi-year firefighter cohort cancer study, and they've got at least 2 components now that are specifically for women. And so if there's folks out there, women obviously, that are interested in getting enrolled in those studies, let me know. I'm not certain if they're still enrolling folks, but I'll find out. And if there's women here or women that are interested in enrolling in either one of those studies, let me know and I can track down that information for them.
That's great news, George. I'll reach out. I know a lot of people who would be interested, a lot of women.
All right, thanks.
Then, sorry, my dog's barking. We've got a question from Colton Ledbetter. Is the 0456 series going to standardize the pay between agencies? For instance, he's a 6-7 engine captain for Park Service, but every other agency is 7-8, or is that a desk audit? I think it's probably that, and I think there's probably more complexity included with the determination of complexity and where you're working. If anyone else has more specific information on that, I'm a little rusty on what's been going on with high complexity versus moderate.
It's a desk audit.
There's another question. Is there a push to get the retention bonus to count toward for retirement? The supplement, I'm assuming you're talking about the supplement that you're currently getting under the bipartisan infrastructure law. No, because it's considered like an award, how it comes down. And so that's one of the drawbacks of the supplement, and why a permanent pay fix is better, because that will count towards your retirement, your TSP contributions, all kinds of things. So that's why we're really fighting. It's another reason we're fighting hard for a permanent pay fix. The supplement does not count towards your high 3, your retirement, or TSP. Somebody asked for the donate link, so it's in the chat now. The button's working again. George, someone's asking what's the best way to contact you if you're willing to provide your email.
Yeah, I'll put that in my chat, in the chat rather, sure.
Thank you.
Smoke jumper, bro.
Hey, George, I've got a question for you, if you don't mind.
Of course not.
Yeah, one thing I'm always wondering about with smoke exposure for the Forest Service is, other agencies like, say, CAL FIRE take all their fire crews off the line to sleep in hotels with filtered air and all that stuff so they can get out of the smoke. And the Forest Service really isn't doing that at all, obviously. And I'm just wondering, what would happen if they came out and said like, yes, smoke causes cancer? Because from my understanding, they still aren't even to that point yet, because they're still looking for some kind of study to come through that's going to prove that smoke causes cancer in wildfire situations. Can you talk about that? Like what's holding the Forest Service back, and what are the implications of if the Forest Service were to determine that smoke was hazardous?
Well, yeah, I've spent hours on the phone and actually in person with a journalist that's writing for ProPublica. I think Pete got me involved with him, and he asked that question numerous times. Well, how come they're not doing X? How come they're not doing Y? And I shake my head in wonder and despair sometimes, to be quite honest with you. It is clear. So the IARC, the International Agency on Research and Cancer, which makes the final and ultimate decision on what occupations have the potential to cause cancer. So 2 years ago, the IARC made it clear that wildland firefighters are prone to specific cancers. So, and it goes back to my comment about the risk management committee said we're going to do some smoke monitoring. Well, we don't need to do more smoke monitoring because we already have enough data. I mean, I've literally got thousands and thousands of hours of data when I did that work, across the country. And when the IARC says that's the definitive determination on what occupations are cancer-causing occupations. So why they're not doing anything, it goes back to where I started, is that, and again, I don't want to say everybody, you all know folks out there on your teams or on your crews that say, listen, we're not going to go in there, we're not going to do X, we're not going to do Y, and here's why. But from the WO with the Forest Service, they have failed, in my mind, to take that seriously. Now I'm sure you guys are familiar, right? The Forest Service put together that FAQ. If you're going to be a wildland firefighter, here's what you got to watch out for, right? You're going to be away from home, you're going to this or that. There's no mention of cancer in that document, And if I am a parent, but if I had a young son or daughter that was going to join the wildland fire community, I'd want to know, and I'd want him or her to know that you're going to get in an occupation that has potential to give you cancer, and that what is the agency, what is your employer going to do about that, right? So I don't have an answer for you, other than it's going to take more collective action, I think, to get them to acknowledge that cancer is a risk for every man and woman out on the line, regardless of what you're doing. And there are things you can do. There are things that they can do. I spent years trying to get the Forest Service involved in the long-term cohort study that I mentioned previously. And it's not until this year that the folks down at on the Angeles, we were able to enroll some of those folks finally. But I've been trying for 10 years to get them involved in some of these studies. So I think, what the grassroots folks are doing, whatever you can do is to push those questions to NWCG. If you're going to do monitoring, you should monitor against the OELs that you recommended are for, to keep you safe, because you can do that. But I don't have an answer to say, I don't know why they're doing it or not doing it, unfortunately.
No, thanks a lot, George. I appreciate that. From my perspective, it's just difficult sometimes, because I feel like the people doing the studies are almost making it worse, because it's like, it's so obvious that smoke causes cancer, but we're waiting for this study, to follow a firefighter for 20 years and figure out if they get cancer. It just seems like they're trying to raise the bar so high we'll never determine that smoke causes cancer, and it's 2024. It's just kind of nuts to me, but I appreciate you for sure.
Yeah, you bet. And it's the same thing with prescribed fire. The smoke data, it makes it clear that that's the same, and sometimes even worse than when you're on a wildland fire. So the same thing, you should be getting HPA on those types of fires, and you should be monitoring the smoke exposure there as well. And as soon as I can figure out how to put my email in this chat, I will send it to you.
Thank you, George.
This is Terry Tilford from Moab with the U.S. Forest Service. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I brought this up the other day on our Fuels Friday conference call, and I asked about where the dosimeters, where can we get them? You know, I was on the San Juan forest here just a few months ago, holding the prescribed burn, eating the smoke, and some of the hot shots there, they had the actual smoke filters. And I was trying to get that intel, and I got a bunch of wind and smoke from the folks on the Fuels Friday conference call or the teams meeting, and there was just no response. There was nothing in the chat. You know, I threw information out. I asked, where can we get dosimeters? And we're just getting nothing. We're getting no feedback, and it's so frustrating. I just want to say thank you guys, Lucas, all you guys for doing what you're doing. It's so important. And those us boots on the ground are still with you. We hear you, and we cherish what you're doing.
Thanks, Terry, and it's nice to see you and see you back in Moab, Monticello.
It's good to be back.
Excellent.
I'm a fire dog. I can't help myself.
I like it. Well, it's certainly good to see you. So we had a request from Andy Vanderhule to discuss another bill that's on the table and folks will be pushing for. And I think we didn't do a huge rundown of everything that's been going on, but outside of WFPPA, the appropriations bill that's gone through, there's a lot of work being done, and some of that falls into an administrative bucket, and those are levers that can be pulled by agencies for workplace improvements, as have been identified by multiple parties. And then there's congressional legislative work. So with that, you've got the floor, Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. And hey, Jonathan, I'm sorry you and I never met up that week, a couple weeks before Christmas that I was in DC. I know you were there too, but I know life happens. So the one I want to talk about, and I'm sure a lot of people are aware, there's definitely some animosity within the agencies towards firefighters because we're getting that extra pay. It is what it is. But there is the temporary buyback bill, and I'll put that link to the legislative action alerts in the link, and maybe Grassroots has one. That is fairly bipartisan. It's like 20 Republicans are co-sponsoring and like 35 or 40 Democrats are co-sponsoring. But it's allowing us all to buy back our temporary time, just like the folks pre-1988 or 1989 could do. So we're working that pretty hard, and that's what NEFI is going to do in DC, as well as WFPPA and Tim Hart. And it's only on the House side, and the information I got today from our ledge director at NEFI was that the Senate wants to wait for the House to pass it and then just mirror that almost exactly and pass the same thing. Much easier there, keep it very clean. So I'll put that in the link. And if folks, you know, when I text my group, like, hey, write your congressman, and then, you know, have your friends, your family, your mom, your dad, your sister, the guy on the street, write them as well. And then what we also do is have them start making phone calls before we show up in DC, because we'll all be in DC again the week of Juneteenth and the week after of Juneteenth. So I'll put that in a link, and it'd be awesome if all 100 and some folks on here could write. As far as WFPPA, from our ledge director, what he's recommending now is to write your senators, asking them to ask Schumer to bring that to the floor for a vote. So because it's out of committee in the Senate, HISGAC, my actual senator is the chairman of HISGAC. It's ready to go. It's in the pile of paper they could pull off and go vote for. We just need to push them to vote for it. So if everyone could write just their senators and say, could you please, you know, ask for a floor vote on this? I know they want to put it into a bigger bill, a must pass bill, but if they hear our voice and this process does work, I got my first co-sponsorship on WFPPA from a congressman in my district. I never thought I'd get the guy, but I felt warm and fuzzy. But I also know co-sponsorship is just that. I'm going to say I support this, and then I can go on social media and say I support Wildland Firefighters without doing anything. But if we can get that forward, that would be awesome. And I know there was some more stuff in the chat about WFPPA. So Luke, I don't know if I can answer that or not. I don't know what's in there. I'd be happy to try my best.
I think if you don't mind filling the gap, maybe we can get to those independently. But if you don't mind talking about some of the potential administrative actions that NIFI's been pushing pretty hard in terms of age pay for prescribed fire.
Yeah, so what I'll touch on one first that a small group in here may have gotten from me today is something that Neffy has been working on for, it's been 12 plus months, was, OPM says if overtime's authorized, so is comp time. And then we had a group, a loud group of small people who were kind of sort of forced to convert to that 26 and 0 because they were unaware of their rights, who are in that 4-hour category or 6-hour category, who are used to that time off in the winter. And there was like a white paper or some kind of internal policy in the Forest Service that you could not take comp time on a P code. Well, as of the direction I got today from Sarah Fisher, and she said it was free to share, you can now take comp time on a P code should you choose. So it's in the 2024, I don't know what the title is, like fire job code guidance or something. But that's out there. It's live. It's good to go. So that was like a very small win for a very small sect of people. With that, as far as hazard pay, that was, I was with Mark Munoz and a bunch of other Neffy folks in Boise. We brought hazard pay up. The agency agreed to, I guess, authorize hazard pay. When it finally happens, they're going to say it was their idea, just like the 3 days off. And then OPM got wind and OMB got wind. So my last update on that is that it is out of the agency's hands now. It's up to the department level. And the department has to do stuff with OMB and OPM. But I do have confidence going to happen unless some fiscal hawks really start balking at it. We do have it in our new contract, the master agreement for all folks who are represented by Neffy. That is in there, but it kind of has a trigger. So it's written in there, but the trigger hasn't happened yet. But I'm hoping that happens by June, July. Is the best bet. It's taken a lot longer than we thought because us and the Forest Service did not know that it had to go to OMB and OPM.
Thanks, Andy.
You bet. And let me know if I missed anything. It's 9:44 in Michigan.
Question, and this is probably administrative. I don't have a good answer for it. Do you need a supervisor approval to take comp time on a P code for the United States Forest Service?
My personal opinion would be no, because if comp time is authorized, so is overtime, and the other way around. I believe the only folks who can be forced to take comp time, maybe Riva can speak to this. I believe at a certain point they can tell you have to take comp and not overtime.
Yeah, I'm gonna mention it has to do with your FSLA status, which we're not going to go into detail, but
yeah, please, thank you.
People in supervisory positions, have more restrictions on being able to take comp time. And you just got to remember, like, they have to cash you out in comp time. So that's why it gets clunky. But for the most part,
I would also like to mention that I don't want to sound like management, but don't forget that comp time is approved just like just like any other annual leave, whether it be credit or comp. So just because you have that comp, it doesn't mean carte blanche you can take it. The approval process is still the same.
But if they don't approve it, 26 pay periods after you accrue it, it gets paid out as overtime.
Correct. Yeah. So what if you want to build up a small bank account and have it cashed out every other August or September, so be it. And if you're in use or lose, if you're not in use or lose, you have to take comp time before you take annual. But if you're in use or lose, you can leave the comp time there.
Dutch?
Hey, I just wanted to mention one other thing. So at the local level, when it comes to some programs that exist that have really been built from Grassroots up, whether it's forest or BLM district. I would encourage folks to reach out to their overhead, their supervisors, management on what exists. I'll use California as an example, but what started many years, from tragedy on the Stanislaus, grew into an extremely robust mental health and support program all around for everything, and that expanded through California Forest Service. So there's a lot of things we can do at the local level, while we're also working to build things out on the national levels as well. So whether you're first-year firefighter, whether you're a supervisor, management, ask the questions. A lot of folks have reached out to us over the last 3 months, saying, hey, we want to start a mental health program on a forest in Utah, or a forest in Idaho. And so, one of our goals is to connect some of those dots if we can. So if you do choose to build a program on your forest, that you're not reinventing the wheel. So there's some really good models that exist out there. So just keep that in mind and don't hesitate to reach out. That's all I have. Thanks.
This is Tilford again from Moab. So on the noise exposure level stuff you guys talked about earlier, I was just talking to a couple of our engine captains today, and it's something that's just sliding under the radar, this long-term exposure. And I mean, they think they go tank for tank, and I'm trying to get them back to the ground where it's like, we're looking at, if you're doing, they were talking about 6-7 tanks a day on a chainsaw. That's an exposure level that is unacceptable. We have to set a limit here somewhere and have some common ground. We could talk to the agency and our employers and get back to the real truth of it. We're losing our hearing and everything else that goes along with it, along with the benzines and all the other stuff. But I think that noise exposure level is something we need to really drive up to a primary discussion we're having with the agencies, because they're throwing us under the bus. It's 85 decibels, in an hour is you've reached that Pell. So we got to get back to that. And I'm really appreciative for this conversation we're having now, because I'm bringing it to the agency tomorrow with my rangers and my folks here on the ground. Thanks.
Is it okay if I put a couple of papers in the chat here, drop them in there on the work that we did with noise?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it'd be awesome, George. We should probably be putting those up in our firefighter resource tab as well on the Grassroots website, which we can
Okay.
follow up with.
All right, I'll drop a couple in here now. I can share the other ones on smoke and stuff as well. So, okay, thanks.
Well, I've been pretty fortunate because most places I worked, we did annual hearing tests. And sometimes there's a mobile unit that came to the office, and sometimes we had to go somewhere for it. But there were a lot of people who blew it off, who didn't want to do it, poo-pooed it, didn't have time, didn't make a priority. And so, it's also the responsibility of you all to make sure you're doing this, especially when the agency is providing that for you. And if they're not providing that, you need to be the squeaky wheel. And if you're on a union forest, you need to go to your union and ask them to assist with that. But management has that responsibility, but then employees have the responsibility to follow through and get the testing.
So props for the Manti LaSalle. They're doing that. We're doing it every year. We're getting that baseline. We're following through with it. We're doing the yearly with the seasonals and the WAEs coming in. So I got to give them that. But I mean, it does get dropped. And it's something so important, that we have to stay focused on.
I've got one question and I'm trying to circle back to it. I know this has been discussed and I'm not going to have a clean answer, and I'll solicit the group. The question is, are there any moves towards amending or updating cost of living adjustments, specifically on employees that are living in quote unquote rural areas, in populations where the homes are 500,000 plus? And I don't have a good answer for that. And I think that that is out of agency hands in some regard, but I thought that it was potentially being evaluated in terms of locality pay. If anyone has anything to add to that, I would appreciate it. Otherwise, we will look for an answer that's better than what I'm given right now. Go for it, Reva.
Locality pay affects all federal employees. So it's way larger than our agencies, and it's based on a whole bunch of criteria. And some of that is population, right? And so that's why some of the smaller towns that might be resort towns, you know, in and around ski hills or other places are often left out of having a locality pay, yet they can't afford to live there, like Jackson, Wyoming, you know. And so it's super complicated, super complex, and sometimes they'll expand it out and add a metropolitan area or counties, but you know, it's I wouldn't count on it, but you know, they're adding and seem to be updating those continuously. So
I can speak on that. This is Tilford again from Moab. The Canyonlands Natural History Association here in Moab has bought houses for us. I'm living in one right now. So it's a subsidized situation where they're coming in because as us federal employees, we can't afford to live in a place like Moab or Reno or you know, San Bernardino. The list can go on and on. But anyway, they've made some real and innovative moves, and we can go in there now and get like a room for $400, or if we can weather it, you know, $1,200 for your own place. I'm in one right now, and it's a really functional thing, and it's beautiful. And I really have to give props to the district ranger here, Michael Englehart, and then those folks. I don't worry about anonymity or anything else. I'm speaking straight from the heart. We've got a program here that works. So we've got parkies and BLM and Forest Service folks, and we're finding affordable housing here in a place that's really hard to buy a place or even just to rent. And we've got this great program here, and it's working. And it's through a Natural History Association. It's a workaround, just like this whole grassroots thing is. We talk candidly, and we get in the game, and we put our voices out there. We're not afraid for the backlash. And I want to thank all you guys for doing this, for putting this venue out here where I can speak freely as somebody that's in the agency now. And we have workarounds, and we're getting things done. We're bringing folks in. We're trying to fight this whole uphill battle. You know, we're handing out, and it's just me on off the cuff, Tilford off the cuff. You know, we're handing out WAE positions, you know, like candy. And we need to do that. We need to get these folks in at the ground level where they know that we're going to support them in their long-term career goals as firefighters coming in. And we can say that we've got their back. And we've got something like the CNHA. It's a magnificent program. We give people housing, you know, beyond the bunkhouse and the trailer pads and all the other things that we've got that we do offer here. And some of you know quite clearly. And I just think that we need to be very creative in our like all of you guys are doing. And I want to really give props to the whole grassroots thing. This is we're outside the box, you know. It's hot shots and smoke jumpers and hell shots and whatever we are, what we were. We think about things outside of the box of our little area of operation. So when we look and we talk to the rangers and we talk to the park superintendents and the district rangers and everything else, you know, we have to really be coming straight from the heart. This is the whole thing. You know, we've lost a lot of friends, and I'm going to soapbox just for a second. And it's all been spoken here, and this is the things that I need to hear. We lost our friends to suicide. We lost our friends when the season ends. You know, it's like you're alone again. You're back in your books. You're working on your master's degree. Things that we do. People that don't understand that we have to guide them in and try to let them understand where we come from. We're educated people. We're people that are really committed to the people of the United States of America. We're committed to the resource, the land, the forest, the park, all the things that we have on our bailiwick. And it's so important, this kind of venue. And this is new and modern to me. And I don't even know if I'm on camera or not. I'm real clunky when it comes to all this technology stuff. But anyway, I just want to say, push back, ask those questions. Say, how can you provide us? Go to the forest supervisor, go to the regional director of the forest or the regional forester and say, I'm trying to come in here. How do I find a place? How do I get, because my goal is to be part of that whole firefighting organization, the things that we love, the people the people we've lost, and just be real in real time with them. I fight a constant battle just with my supervisors on the ground. It's like, how do we go forward? How do we work with the BLM? How do we do this stuff with the NPS? And all we do is this right here. We talk openly, we put our hearts on the table, and we're not afraid. We're not afraid to put a little challenge, or are they going to question me? Is a union going to push back on this? All this. We have to be in this game like you guys are. Everybody on this conversation, everybody in this meeting right now. I just want to be candid and clear. This is so valuable. I went out in the private sector because I couldn't stand the policy and the procedure and all the shit and the abandonment, and all the stuff that goes on. But every time I saw smoke, I was living in Joshua Tree, California. I saw smoke on the San Bernardinos. I wanted to be there. I saw a hot shot buggy go by, or a helicopter going overhead, or an air tanker. I wanted to be there. I believe I belong here with you guys in this conversation, and we can't lose hope because when I go against the grindstone of the policy, and I go on ag learn and all the shit I got to do, I spend like literally 8 hours a day just on a computer trying to get access to my iPad or anything else, my computer connectivity, all that stuff. And it's so frustrating. But the bottom line is we're just boots on the ground. We're the people that really go out there, put our skin in the game. We take the risks. We lose our friends, our people. And yeah, I just wanted to, that's my prop. But don't give up. Here in Moab, Utah, we got a gig going on with the Canyonlands Natural History Association where we got some subsidized housing. We can come in, $400 a room, and I'm trying to recruit right now, so forgive me for that. Come here, we need you. We
Thanks,
got $400
Terry.
a room for $1,200 a month. That's all.
Appreciate it. I'll be in touch with Garner, see if I can still get picked up.
Hey, I need you right now.
All
I'll
right.
hire you tomorrow.
I like it. Hey, I appreciate the heck out of it. It looks like we've got one more question and then we're hitting time. So we'll throw 5-minute warning. But question, is there any discussion or anything in legislation other than Tim's Act, mental health leave, that addresses hiring our folks with some reasonable amount of leave? We're preaching work-life balance and hiring folks with 4 hours of leave. Time off awards and comp time are great workarounds, but shouldn't be the standard. I don't have a good answer other than it needs to be something that's on the list of advocacy. I haven't heard anyone, and it hasn't been with everything else that's been prioritized and worked on in upping the hours upon employment or at the start of an appointment. I know that's not a good answer, but it certainly does need to be addressed. As I'll just add, the whole work to rest system needs addressed. And I think that will be a large portion of Pillar 4's work, or a portion of it, in terms of stovepiped organizations or National Fire Service. Like, what does right actually look like in terms of work-life balance, to where it's not a buzzword that we're great at using and never acting upon, but something that truly does provide work-life balance. And And those are great conversations to have, and definitely does need to be addressed and advocated on. If anyone has anything to add to that, shoot.
I would just say, Luke, that's another function that a lot of the groups are working on. It's not just supporting what exists right now, but also with our legislative advisors, always looking for opportunities, to continue to improve, and just taking mental health, for example. The NDAA has provided a few potential paths forward over the years. There was language in there, I think 2 or 3 years ago, that ended up getting taken out at the 11th hour. I know sometimes that's how things work, but we are committed to always looking for opportunities. And if there are ideas out there or things we're missing, as always, feel free to reach out. And appreciate everything you're doing there, Tom, as well. So, and appreciate the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Got 2 minutes. Randy.
Luke and Grassroots gang, I want to chime in real quick at the end here. Just wanted to express my gratitude for everything that Grassroots is doing, has done, and continues to do. So keep up the good work. And if there's anything the U.S. Hot Shots Association can do to help leverage and or advocate, we're there. So thanks for the invite, and it's been good listening in. I can't always make them, and I'm still somewhat Zoom illiterate. I can run the wheels off a Teams call, but I just working on the Zoom side.
Thanks, Randy, and the feeling's mutual, and thanks a lot for listening in. With that, I can't say much outside of a gigantic thanks. I'm grateful. The Wildland fire community, for a lot of years was my primary focus, and responsibility was the fire family, while my family took a back seat. In a lot of regards, that still happens. I love the community. I love what it's taught me, the skills and ability that it's given me throughout life. It's the most gratifying job I've ever done, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be able to work towards workforce reforms that are long overdue, and hopefully with all these groups present and on one stakeholders call and on a variety of phone calls and platforms together throughout these efforts is huge. And it's great to see the community coming together and keeping the pressure on, and seeing a hell of a lot of change and pushing for more. So thank you from my side.
Thanks, everybody. We'll have the video up hopefully tomorrow, and then we'll let people know on socials, and you can share that with your friends who missed the meeting.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, folks. Have a good night.
Thanks, George.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, everybody.
See you guys.
See you, Max. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Max.
Goodbye, friends.
I'm calling it.
And take us home.